Noor recalls his humble beginnings, born into a peasant family in the mountains. After his father passed away when he was a child, he grew up working the fields with his mother. He believed those peaceful days would last forever, but tragedy struck again when he was 12, as his mother suddenly fell ill and passed away. On her deathbed, she apologized for not being able to do more for him. Her final words, telling him to live the way he wants, would echo in his heart forever. Inspired by his mother's last wish and his father's old stories of adventurers, Noor dreamed of becoming a hero who could face any hardship. Years later, Noor is a fixture in his town. He humbly accepts thanks from an elderly woman, Mrs. Stella, insisting he should be the one thanking her. He reassures a worried young girl that he'll find her runaway cat before nightfall. His kindness is often rewarded, and he tells people to call him anytime they have trouble. Even men lounging on a rooftop acknowledge his work ethic, commenting on his unique capability. Waving goodbye, Noor cheerfully promises to be there whenever help is needed. He enters the local guild, where the owner greets him, asking if he has finished all his tasks. The owner checks over the completed tasks. Noor notes that they were just simple jobs. He receives his payment. After a brief exchange, Noor gets ready to head to his next destination. As Noor leaves, a guild employee watches him go, curiously asking the owner about him. The employee questions why the guild gives such odd jobs to Noor. The owner explains that Noor is a special case. He asks her if she knows the lowest rank in the guild, to which she guesses the beginner rank E. The owner reveals Noor is a rank below that, rank F, a rank she has never heard of. He clarifies that it is the peripheral rank F, the unknown rank. Rank F adventurers are banned from subjugation missions and even discovery missions outside the city, limited only to odd jobs within. The rank was originally created for the extremely poor to help them get by. The employee notes that she's only ever seen Noor at that rank and wonders why the system exists if citizens don't know about it. Confused, she asks why he doesn't just go to the training campus to advance his skills. The owner explains that the training campus offers 6 basic classes: swordsman, hunter, cleric, warrior, thief, and magician. Training there is mandatory, as a government and guild certification is required to become an adventurer. He reminds her that to pass the rank E examination, one must master at least one skill. The employee assumes there must be a reason Noor couldn't go, since anyone trained there would have at least 1 or 2 skills. The owner grimly reveals that Noor did, in fact, attend the campus. The owner continues, explaining that Noor took the examination for all 6 classes. Yet, despite this, he was considered to have no essential skills for being an adventurer. Meanwhile, Noor arrives at a construction site, always on time. The foreman greets him warmly, noting that he's the only one from the guild who accepts such labor-intensive tasks. Noor simply agrees. He gets to work alongside the other laborers. During a break, Noor listens to his coworkers. One of them tells another to give up on his dream. The aspiring adventurer, who claims to have 2 essential skills, insists on trying despite the danger. Another worker scoffs, saying that real adventurers have a special aura, and normal people are meant for manual labor. The conversation makes Noor quietly contemplate the meaning of talent. Noor flashes back to his time at the training campus where his instructor told him time was up. A younger Noor desperately begs his instructor for more time to practice, but is told it's a waste of time. The instructor acknowledges Noor's persistence, but points out that after months, he still hasn't learned any fighting skills. Noor is left dejected. The instructor tells him not to be too sad, suggesting he could find his talent at other training places. The instructor offered a glimmer of hope, mentioning a rumor that practicing one skill long enough could unlock a new one. He encouraged Noor to keep forging ahead if he truly desired to be a swordsman. He told Noor that his unwavering character was a talent that could help him break through difficulties. Fired up by the encouragement, Noor promised he would try his best. However, he recalls that no matter how many training places he went to, he was always told he had no suitable abilities, and his dream of becoming an adventurer seemed to fade. Aware of his lack of inherent ability, Noor decided to take matters into his own hands. He believed his strength could become more powerful than his talent. He resolved to non-stop practice a single skill until he mastered it. He chose the one skill he remembered most from his trainer, Parry. He would keep practicing until he forged a new skill from it. A year later, his training continued. He relentlessly practiced his parry. After practicing day and night, his skill improved immensely, allowing him to strike 10 bows in a single hit, even without learning a new technique. He believed that if he continued, he could make his dream of becoming a true adventurer come true. Every day was filled with excitement and great hope. 3 years later, his progress was even more astounding. After working hard to improve his parry skill, he could now strike 100 bows in a single hit. Yet, he was frustrated that it was still the only skill he had. He knew he had to improve faster to reach his aim. He resolved to get stronger and work even harder. 10 years later, after wearing through 1,000 wooden swords, Noor has perfected a cross-shaped parry attack, but he laments that he still hasn't acquired any new skills and feels he has reached his limit. But he didn't give up. He went to the city and begged the guildmaster until he finally got a title. He reflects that while his main skills are useless, some minor ones have surprisingly helped him a lot in daily life. The strength enhancement skill from the warrior class allows him to carry 5 times the weight a normal man can. And Rohil, a basic cleric skill, helps reduce his fatigue while working without interruptions. The thief's stealth skill is perfect for finding lost cats. The magician's butch fire technique is useful in many household situations. Even the hunter's stone-throwing skill, while not used often, is a hit with the local kids. These minor skills allow him to earn a living, but the one skill that has never been used is parry. He still practices his parry, but now it's just to keep the technique from fading. The days pass quietly. He realizes that by becoming a helpful person, he has already achieved his dream of being an adventurer. He finds contentment in his life, feeling that there's nothing better. At the end of another workday, the foreman calls it a day. He tells Noor that it's a waste for someone so efficient to be living as he is. He offers Noor a full-time job with triple the pay, urging him to drop the adventurer gig. Noor politely declines for now. The foreman, still concerned, knows Noor is having trouble. He gives Noor his contact information for when he changes his mind, and Noor thanks him. As Noor walks away, the foreman calls out for him to come back and practice more. He's startled by a sudden flash of light coming from the maze. Then, a faint voice cries out for help. He recognizes the voice, stopping in his tracks. A monstrous, powerfully built minotaur crackles with energy, its presence menacing. Noor stares in disbelief, wondering if it's a giant buffalo. He's never seen such a giant monster, one that can reach the rooftops. He recognizes the armor of the embattled men as belonging to the Emperor's soldiers. In the midst of the chaos, a young woman, Ines, cries out as she fights. The monster roars with fury. The soldier's commander desperately shouts orders, trying to rally his men to defend. His face is filled with fear. The beast bears down on them, brandishing a massive axe. With a single devastating blow, the Minotaur smashes through the soldier's defenses. Noor watches in horror as a knight is obliterated instantly. Noor realizes the soldiers were defeated in a single hit. Only Ines remains, kneeling on the broken ground. She pants, exhausted and vulnerable. The Minotaur approaches her. It glares down at its final target. The beast raises its fist to strike. Deciding to act, Noor prepares his stone-throwing skill, hoping to distract the monster with the shot. He plans to use himself as a decoy so the girl can escape. Then he'll have to find a way to deal with the monster. The stone hits its mark, getting the Minotaur's attention. The plan backfires. The Minotaur, though distracted, turns and charges towards Ines with blinding speed, leaving both her and Noor shocked at its quickness. He knows that even if he could catch the attack, there's no way he would survive. However, with no other choice, he plants his feet and prepares to use the one skill he has honed for a decade, parry. The monster roars as its attack descends. Noor meets the attack head-on, his body a blur of motion as he executes a perfect parry. The force of the blow is horrific, and Noor feels his sword being blown away by the fast and powerful attack. He knows he can't hold out much longer and must find a weakness immediately. He fears there is no way he can make it. Though he may have found a way to fight back, he realizes he has no deadly blows of his own. The Minotaur prepares another strike. Noor realizes with dismay that his plan failed. The girl hadn't run away. She's still there, frozen in fear. With Ines directly behind him, Noor has no choice but to parry again. His sword begins to splinter under the immense pressure. He knows his sword cannot bear another attack from the giant axe. The monster roars, enraged. The Minotaur puts even more strength into its next swing. Noor understands that if he avoids this attack, the girl behind him will undoubtedly die. With grim determination, Noor tightens his grip on his cracking sword and braces himself to parry one more time. In a flash of movement, Noor perfectly redirects the monster's powerful blow, sending the axe hurtling away and leaving the Minotaur stunned. The redirected force of its own attack slams back into the Minotaur. The beast is thrown back by its own power. Exhausted, Noor collapses to the ground. He did it. His entire body is shaking, and the hilt of his sword shatters in his hand as he realizes he's reached his limit. He had always thought he worked hard, but this monster proved otherwise. He reflects that he's still too weak for an adventurer's journey. Ines, catching her breath, thanks her unseen savior profusely before asking who he is. Meanwhile, soldiers check on her, and she confirms she's fine despite the loss of her comrades. Ines turns to thank her hero, but he has vanished. He is gone into the night. Far away, Noor looks at his trembling hand. His resolve hardened. He knows he must practice more, harder and harder. His true journey has just begun. The morning after the monster's appearance, an investigation begins at the entrance of the maze where the creature's corpse lies. Based on the evidence and testimony, Ryan Clays concludes that the summoned Minotaur was a deliberate act orchestrated by humans. His subordinate, Dalkin, presents fragments of a magician's ring, linking the summoning to the magic empire Deletus. The ring's creation is traced back to the holy magician Oaken, elevating the severity of the incident. Ryan deduces that along with the beast summoning, there was an assassination attempt and a plan to destroy the Queen's force field. Dalkin agrees, stating their true aim was likely to start a war between the two countries. Ryan realizes there's one more thing the enemy will want to get. He concludes they are after the country's special resources, the relics inside the maze of no return. Ryan turns his attention to the mysterious man who rescued Rhine, skeptical that a simple sword could have defeated the monster. Dalkin admits that despite their efforts, they have been unable to find any clues to the man's whereabouts. Ryan is furious, questioning how his elite scouts could have failed to find a single clue. He reconsiders, musing that searching for a hermit would be a waste of time before telling Dalkin to forget it. Ryan orders Dalkin to press on with the rest of the investigation without wasting any more time. Noor is asked about a monster sighting. His foreman expresses concern, noting a rumbling from a monster near where Noor was working. Noor feigns ignorance, though he recalls the incident with the buffalo. The foreman considers him lucky, explaining the power of a minotaur and the rumor of its defeat by an unknown person. He expresses the city's gratitude to the mysterious hero, acknowledging that whoever beat it alone must be incredibly strong. The foreman hands Noor his salary. Noor accepts the payment, content with the amount. His friend tries to convince him to switch to a more lucrative job, but Noor seems content with his life as a hard-working adventurer. Suddenly, a cloaked figure appears behind them, declaring that they have finally found the person they were looking for. Noor recognizes the girl from the other night, who reveals herself from under her cloak. She apologizes for her abruptness, but explains that she sincerely wanted to meet him again. When Noor asks how she found him, she explains she used a skill called remote detection to search from a distance. Noor assumes she is a hunter, but she corrects him, stating all her skills belong to the magician class. Noor is impressed that she knows so many skills despite her young age. As onlookers watch, Reinbrick suggests they continue their conversation outside where there are fewer people. The foreman playfully puts his arm around Noor, teasing him about finding a pretty girlfriend. Reinbrick assures them it's okay, as she can use sound insulation and concealment to prevent anyone from overhearing. The foreman sends Noor off with a fatherly warning to come back safely and avoid danger. Noor acknowledges his words, though he seems a bit confused by the concern. Once outside, Reinbrick apologizes for her earlier rudeness. She earnestly asks to repay him for saving her life. Noor tries to brush it off, but she insists he saved not only her, but the entire city. She sincerely tells him that she would not be standing there if it were not for him. She tells him to ask for anything he wants, boasting that there is nothing her family cannot buy. Noor, taken aback, replies that a simple thank you is good enough for him. Reinbrick insists, telling him not to be shy and that her father and elder brother also want to meet him. Noor replies that her coming to thank him is gratitude enough. She argues that for her and her family, not repaying her savior is unacceptable, but Noor firmly says he doesn't need it. She continues to press, offering to solve any problems he has, but he grows frustrated and repeats that he doesn't need anything. Reinbrick looks down, saddened by his refusal. Noor apologizes, but firmly states he does not want to receive anything in return. With tears in her eyes, she insists that repaying him is her duty. Seeing his hesitation, she threatens to stand there and cry unless he accepts her gratitude. Reinbrick stares at him with determination. Noor is taken aback by her dramatic ultimatum. He finally relents, agreeing to go see her family. Overjoyed, Reinbrick celebrates as Noor cautions her not to go overboard. She eagerly agrees and casts spells to hide and conceal them from prying eyes. Noor follows Reinbrick up a grand staircase. She cheerfully leads him onward. He is stunned to find himself standing before a massive castle. "This is your house?" he asks in disbelief. She confirms it with a smile, calling it a castle that's not magnificent. Reinbrick realizes she hasn't asked for his name yet. He tells her his name is Noor, and she happily acknowledges him. When he asks for her name, she is momentarily flustered. She apologizes for her discourtesy in not introducing herself first. She then formally introduces herself as Reinbrick Kreis, inviting him to call her Rein. Noor accepts her name, calling her Rein. He marvels at the size of the house, realizing she must be the daughter of a wealthy noble. Rein happily greets a woman in armor, calling out to Ines. Ines formally welcomes Master Reinbrick home. Rein asks to see her father, but Ines informs her that His Majesty is currently in a meeting. Ines's gaze then falls on Noor, her expression questioning. Rein explains that Noor is her guest who saved her life, telling Ines not to be rude. A startled Ines understands and agrees to lead the way. Ines coolly leads them onward. Noor follows, slightly intimidated. Noor thinks to himself that Ines's caution is understandable, given that an unknown person has entered a place like this. Ines stops at a large door and invites him to enter. As they proceed down a long hall, a man leans against a wall waiting. The man, Gilbert, greets Ines and Reinbrick before eyeing Noor curiously. Ines sternly tells Gilbert to get out of the way, identifying Noor as Master Reinbrick's guest. Gilbert smirks, recognizing Noor, and asks if he's a guest. Gilbert steps aside, allowing them to pass. They arrive at a vast chamber where a figure sits on a throne, with another person standing before him. Upon entering, they are met by Rein's brother, Rein. He recognizes his sister, calling her name in question. Rein immediately notices she is wearing his invisibility cloak. He asks if she borrowed it without permission, which is against the law. Rein apologizes, explaining she wanted to find her benefactor herself. Rein is shocked to learn that this is the man. Rein proudly presents Noor as the person who saved her. At the sight of the king, Rein immediately kneels. Noor watches as the king approaches. The man on the throne rises. It is King Clays, who observes that Noor is younger than he thought. The king invites Noor to come closer so they can talk. Noor warns him that he's not a noble and might be rude, asking if that's still fine. The king simply replies that he does not mind. King Clays says that on the contrary, it makes it easier for them to talk, as he is different from other aristocrats. He extends a hand and thanks Noor once again. The king firmly shakes Noor's hand. He expresses his profound gratitude, stating that without Noor's act of courage, he would have lost his daughter. Noor humbly states that he is satisfied with the king's words. The king smiles, pleased. The king insists he can't let his benefactor go home empty-handed and offers him territory or money. Noor politely declines, explaining that he is happy with the gratitude alone. He reveals his dream is to acquire the skills to become a true adventurer, something that money cannot buy. The king is intrigued that Noor is not interested in wealth or land. The king offers treasures from the maze, but Rein protests that he is going too far. Noor thinks to himself that the king's words are good enough and that Rein could have escaped the Minotaur if she had been calm. The king misinterprets Noor's silence as indecisiveness, noting that like father, like daughter, they are excessively courteous. The king declares that he will choose a reward for Noor and turns to leave. The king unsheathes a massive, gnarled black sword. He presents the strange weapon to Noor, asking what he thinks of it. Noor eyes the deformed blade, wondering if it's even a sword, while the king notes its unusual shape. Rein protests, telling his father that the sword is not a suitable gift. The king dismisses his concern, stating it's just a decoration and no one will notice if it's replaced by a replica. He orders Ines and Gilbert to keep the exchange a secret. They bow their heads and agree. Noor takes the heavy sword. He hesitates, noting from their conversation that the sword seems quite important, and tries to decline. The king insists, claiming it's just something he found and is no good to him anyway. Reluctantly, Noor accepts the sword, thanking the king. The king then encourages him to give it a try. Noor agrees and gets ready to swing the sword. With a powerful swing, he effortlessly brandishes the massive blade. He notes the sword's immense weight, but comments that it's no problem since he can use strength enhancement. The king is very impressed that Noor can swing the sword with one hand. He reveals that despite its deformation, it is a sturdy sword that has saved his life multiple times. Noor smiles and promises to use it carefully. The king then asks if Noor would consider being Rein's protector, as he is anxious about recent events. Noor declines, advising that parents shouldn't worry too much and should let their children face adversity themselves. The king concedes the point with a sigh. As Noor leaves, he muses that he is bringing home a treasure despite not wanting one. He suddenly has a practical idea for the sword. He realizes the sword's width looks perfect for fixing Aunt Stella's gutter and resolves to try it tomorrow. As he is about to leave, he is stopped by a voice. It is Ines who has something to say to him. Ines approaches Noor. To his surprise, she bows deeply before him. She apologizes for her attitude, explaining she didn't know he was Miss Reinbrick's benefactor. She begs for his forgiveness for her disrespect. Flustered, Noor tells her he doesn't take it personally and urges her to stand up. Ines rises, appreciating his generosity. She explains that her responsibility is to protect the Kreis family, hence her wariness of guests. Noor innocently remarks that her armor must be inconvenient for housework and asks if she's a maid. Ines is momentarily shocked by his question. She recovers with a small smile. She introduces herself properly as Ines Hans, deputy leader of the warrior corps under the family's direct control. Ines explains her title is God's Shield, and she was luckily off duty when Noor protected her master. She thanks him from the bottom of her heart, not only for saving her master but also for saving her from the death penalty for failing her duty. Noor casually agrees that he will ask for her assistance if he's ever in trouble. Ines's expression remains serious and intense. Ines warns Noor that she has not fully acknowledged him yet, citing his rudeness in front of the king and disrespect to Rhine. She states that today is an exception and he should be more respectful next time, as she won't forgive such behavior again. Noor accepts her warning. Her expression softens as she asks for the name of her benefactor. Noor introduces himself. Ines seems stunned, repeating his name in disbelief. Noticing her reaction, Noor asks if something is wrong, but she says it's nothing and tells him to leave. Ines watches him go, lost in thought. Noor decides it's time to head back home. Just as Noor is about to head home, a spear tip flashes past his face. Gilbert blocks his path, asking why the hero is leaving so early and requesting a small talk. Gilbert, not ready to go home, confronts Noor and challenges him to a spar. The two men stand facing each other, one eager for a fight, the other perplexed. Noor, unfamiliar with the term, asks what a spar is. Gilbert explains that it is a practice fight, as two other men duel in a training ring. His gaze remains fixed on Noor, who stands behind him. Gilbert's reputation is well known in the royal capital. He wants to test the ability of the so-called hero. Noor accepts the challenge, taking a practice sword. Noor says he is looking forward to it. With a determined smile, Gilbert signals for them to start. Gilbert launches his first attack, thrusting his spear forward. Noor easily sidesteps the blow. Gilbert continues his assault, but every strike misses its mark. Noor stands calmly, his weapon held at the ready. Gilbert smirks, impressed that Noor dodged all of his attacks. He decides to speed up, whirling his spear around him. He goads Noor, challenging the hero to truly entertain him. In a flashback, Gilbert easily defeats an opponent in a spar. The opponent calls for him to stop. Onlookers cheer for Gilbert's victory, recognizing him as the rumored powerhouse. It was in that moment Gilbert realized he had a talent for spear fighting and that no one present could match him. He worked hard to master every technique, feeling himself getting stronger day by day. However, his unmatched skill led to boredom, which a hooded man noticed. Gilbert admitted he wasn't unhappy, just bored. The man understood, stating that Gilbert was looking for a challenge that no one here could provide. Gilbert explained that after defeating everyone in the capital, he hoped to find a worthy opponent out here. He had even stopped training with his teachers, desiring a strong partner to train with. The hooded man understood, telling him he might find one soon. He revealed that the capital was recruiting strong warriors due to conflict with foreign countries, and that a worthy person would surely appear there. The hooded man advised Gilbert to return now. Gilbert understood that the capital would be gathering forces. After returning, he continued to kill monsters. He fought thugs in the city in an endless cycle of battles. Though his opponents grew stronger, he still couldn't find anyone who could truly compare to him. No matter who he faced, big or small, the result was the same. As he continued fighting, a single emotion swelled up inside him. Overwhelming boredom led to frustration as he declared them all too weak. Gilbert lay in a field, his spear beside him. His master, Sig, approached, having found him. Sig questioned why the holy spear was just lying there. Gilbert nonchalantly asked if he was there for more boring paperwork. Sig admitted to feeling empty, wishing he could meet more powerful people like Gilbert. Sig considered the idea of meeting someone like himself, finding it interesting. Gilbert asked if Sig was also bored living among weak soldiers and adventurers. Sig replied that it's his duty to protect the capital and he can't win a war by himself. He added that one day, someone stronger than them will appear. Gilbert hoped that day would come before he died from boredom. Back in the present, Noor continues to effortlessly dodge Gilbert's attacks. Gilbert notes that Noor is only focused on dodging. Noor thanks him for holding back, but encourages him to go faster, much to Gilbert's surprise. Gilbert apologizes, wondering if he had been unconsciously holding back the whole time. He realizes he is already near full power and decides to unleash a final blow. Gilbert lunges forward with a powerful strike. The attack narrowly misses Noor's face. Noor pivots on his sword, dodging the attack with surprising agility. Gilbert lunges, believing he has finally caught Noor. But Noor once again twists out of the way. Gilbert realizes Noor used his wooden sword as a pivot, marveling at his dexterity. He stares in disbelief. His spear has never once hit him. He is utterly speechless. Noor calmly asks if he is all right, encouraging him to go a bit faster. Gilbert stares in wide-eyed shock. A sinister smile spreads across his face as he agrees. He decides there is no need to hold back anymore. He prepares to unleash his full power. Gathering all his strength, Gilbert unleashes his ultimate technique, Dragon Destruction Flash. He throws his spear with deadly force, an attack he has never used on a person before. The spear flies straight for Noor's throat, and Gilbert is certain it cannot miss. With impossible speed, Noor swings his heavy sword upward, meeting the deadly spear head-on. Gilbert is left in utter disbelief, wondering what just happened. He questions how his attack could have possibly missed. He notices a massive crack in the ground from the deflected blow. Staring at Noor, he tries to comprehend what he just witnessed. Noor calls out to stop the fight. He yields the match. Gilbert stares after him in stunned silence. Noor walks away from the training grounds. Noor reflects on the powerful final attack. He realizes Gilbert must have been holding back at first, and that he somehow got stronger during the fight. He had to use all his abilities, casting strength enhancement and ninja feat at the same time to dodge. If he hadn't been able to match the spear's speed, he would have died. He notes that pride can lead to a quick death. He's thankful for the lesson, realizing how weak he still is and resolving to train harder so he won't be overwhelmed again. The training hall floor is shattered from their spar. Gilbert sits alone, contemplating the fight. He thinks about the man who single-handedly killed the Minotaurs. He recalls that at first glance, Noor looked like a normal farmer and didn't seem strong enough to face a Minotaur on his own. He wonders if the cracks were caused by Noor's silent movements. He realizes this is the first time he has completely lost a spar and that Noor yielded to save him from embarrassment. He remembers Noor's parting remark about looking forward to seeing him again. A smile spreads across Gilbert's face as he realizes things are about to get fun. Sometime later, Noor finishes a job, satisfied with his work. He uses the large, strange sword to scrape stubborn dirt from the bottom of a gutter, finding it quite useful. His friend thanks him and asks for help with another task, and Noor agrees to come. Noor examines the sword, noting its sturdiness, just as Ryan's father had said. He reflects that no matter how much he uses it, it doesn't seem worn down at all. He admits its strange appearance might hide any damage. His friend calls out for help when he's finished, and Noor agrees. Noor rests, having completed the many requests to clean and fix gutters. His job at a construction site was cancelled due to some incident. He wonders what to do, as his F-rank status limits him to jobs inside the capital. A voice asks if he doesn't usually have a list full of requests to complete. He turns to see who is approaching. Reinbrick greets him with a cheerful good morning. Noor is surprised to see her and asks why she is there. She explains that she asked the guild master where to find him and apologizes if she is intruding, which Noor says she is not. Noor is impressed, realizing it must have taken significant tracking skills to find him. He asks why she was looking for him, thinking their business was concluded. She thanks him again for his help the previous day. However, she states that she came for another reason. With a serious expression, Reinbrick makes a startling request. She asks Noor to allow her to become his apprentice. A story was once told of a boy at the Royal Training Center who was gossiped about for having no talent, a tale that sounded like a fairy tale to all who heard it. In reality, this boy had been training relentlessly since he was 12, managing to acquire the basic skills of 6 different classes. Confused by her proposal, Noor asks her to explain what she means. Rhine clarifies that for magicians, a servant is like a disciple who tends to their master's needs in return for being taught skills and knowledge. Rhine earnestly declares that just being by his side is enough, and she will do her best to serve him without being a disturbance. To her utter shock, Noor bluntly declines her offer. Stunned, she quickly asks if something upset him or if he thinks she is too young to work. Noor stands firm, stating he has nothing to teach and prefers to handle everything himself. Rhine then offers a substantial reward from her family, but Noor tells her to stop. She presses on, insisting she can handle anything from housework to guild requests enthusiastically. Frustrated but determined, Rhine exclaims that she will prove her worth to him. She implores him to watch her carefully, ready to demonstrate her vast capabilities. Rhine raises her hand and casts a powerful spell, the Dance of Frost, summoning a vortex of sharp, icy blades around herself. Without pause, she unleashes another formidable attack, Blaze Strike. She proudly explains that Blaze Strike is one of her supreme skills. Her swift, practiced movement showcases her confidence and power. She announces her next move, Dragon Strike. With a single, powerful blow, she splinters a massive tree. She explains to a stunned Noor that it is a secret thief's skill taught to her by a very good instructor. Her display of power culminates in the Holy Light Strike, a special skill that erupts in a blinding flash of sacred energy. Rhine stands proudly, explaining that Holy Light Strike is a swordsman's skill effective against undead. She eagerly asks if there is more to show, but Noor cuts her off, saying he's seen enough. Internally, he feels completely outclassed by her power. Misinterpreting his silence, Rhine hopefully asks if he will finally accept her as his disciple. Noor declines again, stating he has nothing to teach a person of her caliber. He thinks to himself that she is misunderstanding his abilities and knowledge and hopes she will realize it soon. Rhine, undeterred, presses her case, mentioning she was recognized by instructors of 6 classes. She is certain she can be useful if he lets her serve him. Realizing words are not enough, Noor decides a demonstration is the only way to make her understand. He declares he will show her his skill, believing it is best for her to see with her own eyes. The scene shifts to a memory of a younger Rhine questioning her master, Oaken, about the significance of a simple fireball. In the flashback, a young Rhine watches in awe as her master's fireball grows. Master Oaken explains that a fireball is a basic skill whose size and power grow with practice, having no true limit. Rhine recalls this lesson, remembering her own inability to practice enough to match her master's impressive display. Noor manifests a massive, perfectly formed sphere of raw energy that leaves Rhine utterly stunned, realizing his fireball is several times larger than even her master's. The true meaning of his power begins to dawn on her. Her earlier confidence shatters as she realizes she was bragging about high-level skills she hadn't even mastered. She recalls Noor's past feats, like blocking a Minotaur's fatal blow with one hand, and understands his true strength. She now sees Noor as a man of pure strength, who seeks neither fame nor status, but simply helps others. He's simply so strong. Elsewhere, Prince Rhine reflects that this kind of strength is essential for the realm's future defense, and that he has been looking for someone just like Noor. With newfound clarity, Rhine turns to Noor and says she understands. She acknowledges her own complacency and shortcomings. Noor is left utterly confused by her sudden change in demeanor. Instead of leaving, Rhine declares that she will follow him until the day he accepts her, now calling him master. Noor observes her, realizing that the potential sleeping within her is the same strength that the royal family desires. In a grand estate, Prince Rhine contemplates his recent thoughts. He cannot understand why his father would give the legendary black sword to a commoner. His father was too generous with rewards from May's relics, but giving away a national treasure seems ridiculous. He reflects on his father's past as the leader of the 6 Saints, an adventurer guild that ventured into the deepest parts of the Maze of No Return. Rian muses on the sword, a Maze relic also known as the Unbreakable Sword, which his father's party risked their lives to obtain. It was rumored that dwarves used dragon fangs to forge the monstrous blade, which was said to be harder than the crystalline Holy Stone. Ultimately, its materials were a mystery, and it was considered indestructible. He realizes his father must have been determined to bet on this ignorant commoner. Perhaps giving Noor the sword was the key to breaking the tense, unspoken deadlock gripping the seemingly peaceful kingdom. Rian wonders when he will develop such a sharp and distant vision like his father. As Noor walks through the city, he confirms to an onlooker that he is heading to the guild. Ryan cheerfully follows, suggesting they find a fascinating quest for her master. Noor feels his earlier attempt to dissuade her has been counterproductive and decides to find a simple task at the guild to kill time. At the guild, Noor asks the guild master for a mission. The master is surprised to see Ryan with him. Ryan politely corrects the master, asking him not to call her Miss Ryan. The guild master pulls Noor aside, whispering to ask if something happened, as she had been looking for him that morning. Noor deflects, saying he just gave her some advice. Hoping a joint mission might make Ryan realize her misunderstanding, Noor asks for a quest for two. The guild master, noting Ryan's silver rank, suggests a mission that requires a party. The suggestion to destroy goblins leaves Noor utterly shocked. Noor can't believe it, but the guild master confirms that since a silver rank member is participating, it's fine. He explains that while silver missions are too much for Noor, it's okay if the mission is a rank or two lower. A goblin mission is 3 ranks lower than silver, making it an acceptable quest for them. For Noor, this is the quest he's been waiting for. The day has finally arrived. Seeing his reaction, Ryan asks what's the matter. Noor reflects on the irony. He was trying to get rid of her, but now he needs her to get the mission. He hesitantly asks if she's all right with this quest. To his surprise, Ryan beams with joy, declaring that nothing could make her happier than being helpful to her master. Although he feels bad relying on a young girl, Noor is determined. This is the mission he has longed for, and he must take it. He excitedly bids farewell to the guildmaster and rushes out, not even letting the master finish his sentence. The guildmaster calls out a final warning, reminding Noor that it's not safe even if the threat level is low. He explains that missions for lower ranks have been decreasing, and if no goblins appear, they should just pick some herbs. He points out the location on the map and tells them not to forget the subjugation certificate. With that, he sends the two on their way. With his huge sword slung over his shoulder, Noor tells Ryan it's time to go, and she readily agrees. Noor is thrilled. They are going to destroy goblins, the first step of a true adventurer. Goblins typically live in the woods, but if their numbers grow unchecked, they begin to encroach on human territory, forcing adventurers to periodically hunt them. The Forest of Monsters, located in the north, is home to not only goblins but many other monstrous creatures, and also serves as a training site for new adventurers. Kneeling in the forest, Ryan is ready for the task at hand. It's time to subjugate some goblins. As they walk through the woods, Ryan remarks with surprise that there are no goblins to be found. Noor looks on as she speaks. She explains that while a few goblins should have appeared by now, their numbers seem to be drastically lower than expected. Ryan lets out a small gasp, sensing something. Her magic ring glows, and she announces that she's detected a monster, though it's far away. Noor is surprised, but Ryan confirms her reading and urges him to hurry. Noor finds the silence of the forest unsettling, noting the absence of birdsong in what should be a lively place. He turns to Ryan, asking what's wrong as she seems confused. She explains that the monster she detected was right here, but now there is nothing. Noor theorizes the creature may have died, but notes there is no body or any trace of it. Ryan looks at the dust motes in the air with a puzzled expression. Ryan stares at the strange dust on her hand. Noor spots something and urgently tells Ryan to look up. A pair of legs appears, hanging eerily between the trees. Realizing they're caught in a hidden spell, Ryan desperately reaches out to disarm it. A massive, menacing goblin appears before them, holding the headless corpse of its victim. The creature's shadow falls over Noor and Ryan. Ryan questions if it's a goblin, then notices the magic stone on its forehead, realizing it's something much worse than a goblin king. The creature is identified as a goblin emperor. It is the ultimate goblin specimen, created from the accidental transformation of a goblin king centuries ago. Studies show it is an ancient creature, a monster born by human means through forbidden techniques. This powerful monster is a product of humans meddling with nature. Its strength is equivalent to an A-level disaster, a fact it demonstrates by effortlessly smashing a large tree. Ryan internally panics, realizing the creature is many times bigger than the goblin kings from her books. She knows that even a normal goblin king requires a team of elite adventurers, and this one is 10 times stronger. Holding her wand, she feels utterly powerless, believing she isn't strong enough. She feels as useless as she did in a past failure. Noor calls out to Ryan, breaking her out of her fearful trance. Noor looks at the monster and tells Ryan that their opponent is just a goblin, and it is time to finish it. Filled with renewed purpose, Ryan agrees enthusiastically, ready for battle. Noor steels himself, thinking that this is his first encounter with the so-called weakest monster, a goblin. He acknowledges that it's much bigger than he imagined, but rumors are often far from reality. It's hard to believe this is considered a beginner's monster, but it stands before him nonetheless. He admits to himself that he was scared for a moment, his legs frozen in place. Despite the fear, he resolves to take the monster down, seeing it as his first true step as an adventurer. With sword in hand and resolve hardened, Noor faces the charging Goblin Emperor. This is his first real step on the path to becoming an adventurer. The Goblin Emperor's massive fist comes crashing down. Noor focuses, preparing to parry the blow. He successfully deflects the powerful attack with his sword. The impact sends a shockwave through him, and he grunts from the sheer force of the parry. The ground beneath him cracks from the deflected energy. The Goblin Emperor lunges forward for another strike. After another successful parry, Noor yells for Rhine to attack now. Rhine casts her Dance of Frost spell, but she's shocked by the monster's agility. Despite its giant body, it's incredibly fast. Noor deflects another blow with a parry. He shouts to Rhine, telling her he's all right. Rhine sees another attack coming and screams a warning to her master. Internally, Noor admits the situation is dire as the attacks keep increasing in intensity. He knew goblins were fast, but he didn't expect this level of strength and worries he can't protect Rhine if this continues. Rhine unleashes a powerful wind blast spell, impacting the monster's arm. Noor praises her and suggests he defend while she attacks, but Rhine firmly says no. Rhine directs Noor's attention to the goblin's left hand. She explains that her attack was in vain, as the wound she inflicted has already auto-healed. She theorizes the terrifying power must come from the magic stone on its forehead. Noor asks if they need to find a way to remove the stone. Rhine confirms, but admits that the creature is too fast for her to catch. Noor makes a shocking request. He asks Rhine to shoot him in the back with her wind magic. Rhine is aghast, exclaiming that the wind blast spell can destroy a wall. Noor insists it's their only way to catch up with the monster's speed, believing his sword can withstand the blast. He tells her they will never win against the dark red magic stone otherwise. Rhine agrees to do as her master says, and Noor thanks her. As Rhine prepares her spell, Noor braces himself for the impact before she unleashes the wind blast. The blast hits Noor with incredible force. He grunts, using a physical enhancement skill to keep himself from being torn apart as the ground around him explodes from the sheer power. Propelled forward like a cannonball, Noor feels his body might be torn to pieces. He activates his stealth and healing skills, closing the distance in an instant. The goblin reacts, attempting to dodge, but this time, Noor is faster. With a triumphant thought, he knows he's got it. With a final, decisive strike, Noor's sword smashes into the Goblin Emperor's forehead, shattering the dark red magic stone. The mission is complete. While Noor and Rhine recover from their battle, news of the giant goblin's defeat reaches the royal capital. In a grand office, a young man with white hair considers the threat to the capital, feeling the pressure of time running out. A knock interrupts his thoughts. One of his subordinates announces he has urgent news. The man, Rhine, grants him entry. Rian examines the magic stone, finding it hard to believe it came from a goblin emperor, as its purity suggests a creature of unimaginable size. His hooded subordinate confirms the report stated the monster was significantly larger than a goblin king. Rian agrees that the magic stone is abnormally powerful. He then asks his subordinate if they have any idea where it came from. The subordinate reports that only the Demon Heart sect from the religious state of Misura is capable of creating such magic stones. Rian agrees with the assessment. He realizes there must be some sort of machination at play to let such a monster run rampant. He is startled that just 2 people were able to defeat such a monstrosity. The subordinate explains that the monster was hidden in the forest with high-tier presence concealment magic just days before the princess discovered it. Rian is shocked that such magic could bypass the capital's intelligence agency. He wonders how they could have possibly smuggled such a large monster into the nation. Activating summoning circles would have triggered sensors across the capital, making transport by carriage impossible. Rian asks if anything else was found in the vicinity and is told that few adventurers are in the forest as it is not hunting season. His agent reports a significant drop in goblin numbers, noting that the guildmaster had sent an urgent proposal to the royal palace 3 days ago to restrict skirmishing. Rian remarks that other areas seem to be experiencing the same phenomenon. Another subordinate presents him with a report on all mysterious events from the last 3 months. Rian flips through the report he was handed. He catalogs a series of seemingly unrelated incidents: strange noises, lost pets, disappearances, frightened livestock, and an unnatural silence in the forest. At first, the events seem like petty, unconnected incidents. But upon closer examination, he notices a disturbing pattern. Rian sees on a map that all the occurrences are clustered around a specific area. The realization hits him with a jolt. He immediately orders his men to the location, telling them to bring specialists in nullifying presence concealment magic. With the threat escalating, Rian makes a grave decision to summon the Six Saints. He stands before a map of the region and issues the emergency order. Rian instructs his subordinates that he will report to the king once the Six Saints have assembled. They confirm his orders and rush off to carry them out. He is left alone in the room. The weight of the situation settles upon him. Frustrated, Rian slams the report onto the table. He berates himself for not realizing the truth sooner. He realizes their enemies have advanced further than he thought. He laments that the Empire of Diabolism, with whom he once hoped to form an alliance, is behind this. As he considers all the surging threats, he feels a sense of dread. Rian clenches his fist in frustration. He has a grim certainty that his nation is gradually sinking toward a path of destruction. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, the Guildmaster processes their report, noting that Noor seems uninjured. The Guildmaster expresses his disbelief that Noor took down the goblin on his own, but Noor gives credit to Rian for her support. Noor feels a sense of accomplishment, thinking he must celebrate this milestone. The Guildmaster teases him, asking if he made the princess do all the jobs. Rian gets flustered, protesting that she barely helped and that she would have been dead without Noor. Rian shyly insists she didn't help much. The Guildmaster reminds them that even a normal goblin is a threat for beginners, and they should be grateful for the experience. Noor agrees, remarking on the goblin's gigantic size. He adds that its weakness was a gem in its forehead, which the Guildmaster identifies as the magic stone. Noor describes it as a diamond-like gem that emitted a reddish-purple light. The Guildmaster explains that goblins normally have their magic stones in their heart or throat, which surprises Noor. He questions if the creature they fought was really a goblin. Noor turns to Rian for confirmation. Rian eagerly confirms that it was a goblin and that everyone saw it. Puzzled, the master asks if they brought back anything as proof. Noor seems confused by the question. Noor recalls using Hell Flare to destroy the gem after realizing the monster couldn't recover without it. He plainly tells the Guildmaster that he burned it, causing the master to shout in disbelief that he won't get paid without evidence. The Guildmaster sighs, saying he has no idea what to do with Noor anymore. He tosses a pouch of coins to Noor, congratulating him on a smooth start. He says it's fine, as he believes Noor could at least defeat a normal goblin. Rian prepares to leave, and Noor thanks her for her help, asking if she'll assist him again. She happily agrees and wishes him a good evening as she departs. Just then, a figure descends the stairs. It's Prince Rian, who acknowledges both Rian and Noor's presence. Rian is surprised to see her brother. The Guildmaster remarks on the prince's sudden arrival to see Noor. Noor and Rian stand face to face, a tense silence between them. Rian gets straight to the point, asking Noor to go with Rian to a mountainous town tomorrow. He states that a carriage and escorts are already prepared, and there is no time for explanations. With intensity, Rian insists that only Noor can help for now. He pleads for him to accept the mission. The following morning, Noor leaves the royal capital with Rian. He reflects that the task is considered a guild mission, and the master granted him, an F-ranked adventurer, special permission to undertake it. He was also told to try and complete it for a remarkable reward. But his true reason for accepting this mission is something else entirely. Noor is thrilled. It's his first time riding in a carriage and getting to see the sights. More than anything, he's excited for the opportunity to go on an exploration, since he's never been outside the capital. Inside, Rian quietly thinks that it feels like a traveling trip, perhaps even giving her a chance to visit the border regions. Rian apologizes to Sir Noru for dragging him into this mission. He tells her he should be the one thanking her for the opportunity to join the trip. Their plan is to first head to a town in the Tauros mountainous area to the northwest of the capital. From there, they will cross the mountain and head to the religious state of Mishura. For Noor, it's his first time seeing the vast fields with his own eyes, especially during the main harvest. Noor looks forward to seeing more sublime sceneries now that he's an adventurer. Rian tells him he doesn't have to be so formal, as she is his escort on this mission. Noor is taken aback by her statement. He assures her that he can protect himself, and is also pretty good at disengaging from fights. To prove her point, Rian tells him to take a look and demonstrates her divine shield skill, conjuring a powerful defensive barrier. Noor is impressed by her special skill, and Ryan explains that he should take cover behind it in case of danger, as ordinary weapons and magic can't penetrate it. Noor thinks to himself that her power is similar to a powerful fighter named Gilbert. He once fought in the military training ground. He feels reassured knowing his escort is rumored to be strong enough to duel a dragon. Noor resolves to stay behind her, feeling he's no match for such power. Suddenly, his expression changes. As he looks out the window, he asks, "What's that?" He notices bizarre traces on the fields that look as if a road had been built. He points out that something is moving in the fields, and Ryan asks him if he sees something suspicious. Noor asks if she sees it, but Ryan and her attendant can't spot anything. A large cloud of dust rises in the distance. Ryan realizes there is indeed something there. She quickly casts Presence Concealment Nullification. The concealment spell shatters, revealing the hidden entity. The magic reveals a massive, lizard-like beast. Huddled behind it for protection is a small, frightened child, Rollo. Ryan stares in shock at the revealed monster. Before she can fully process the situation, Noor leaps out of the moving carriage, sword drawn, hurtling towards the danger. The beast stands protectively over the exhausted Rollo. The young child looks up in fear. Ryan watches in horror. The creature raises its massive, clawed hand to strike. Just in time, Noor lands between the monster and the child, parrying the attack with a flash of his sword. He recognizes the creature as the giant toad that was hiding in the fields. 200 years ago, the demons declared war on the sacred religion kingdom Manhwa, but they were defeated and their people became aimless wanderers. Though they look human, demons can manipulate monsters, and records tell of them destroying entire cities. As a result, they were hunted to near annihilation. The kingdom of Manhwa now offers huge bounties for the capture of any surviving demons. A brutal punch sends Rollo flying. His captor sneers, questioning how an abomination like him dares to even look in his direction. Rollo lies bruised and battered amongst the debris. He reflects that he gets beaten whenever he looks at the man. The man is always brutal, whether Rollo speaks or not. He once wondered why he was still here, just to suffer. Rollo recalls asking his captors that very question. For his defiance, his face was beaten severely, and he was punished for 3 days with only water to drink. Despite the cruelty, he never retaliates or rebels. He endures it all because he can feel their emotions. He can understand the feeling of hurting others, and of being hurt. When his captors learned he could read their minds, their animosity towards him only grew. They spat that it was to be expected of a foul demon, beating and kicking him every day. Eventually, his body got used to the sensation of pain. The man promises that if Rollo does what he says, he can enjoy delicious food. Rollo stands small and alone before his captor, and the monstrous creature. Rollo recalls being unable to read the man's mind, guessing it was because of his magical circlet. Although his captor always beat him and his friends, he had never broken a promise before. Disobedience meant punishment, while compliance brought reward. He had chosen compliance, which meant he had to kill. Rollo reflects on how delusional he was to think it is better to hurt others than to be beaten himself. If he were to disobey, he and his friends would be beaten, but this time, his task was to kill, not just hurt someone. That's why he must succeed in killing the target, leading the fearsome dragon onward. The concealment spell shatters around them, much to Rollo's surprise. He wonders how someone could so easily break their enhanced concealment spell. Cursing his distraction, he realizes his control has slipped. He can no longer manipulate the Black Dragon of Death. He laments being a good-for-nothing, with not enough time to recast the mind-controlling spell. The thought of his friends being beaten for his failure fills him with sadness. But in that moment of despair, he thinks that death may be his best salvation. He wishes that if he were given a second life, he wouldn't have to hurt others, and he wouldn't be hurt either. As the beast's claw comes down, Rollo wishes he could become a helpful person to avoid being beaten, and finally find delicious food to eat. In a flash, Noor intercepts the monster's attack, his sword clashing against its claw just inches from Rollo. The creature lets out a guttural roar, facing its new opponent. It lunges forward with incredible speed. Noor stands his ground, expertly parrying the beast's attacks. He deftly parries another one of the creature's powerful strikes. Noor thinks to himself that the toad is strong but slow, confident he can hold it back until Rene and Ines come to his aid. The toad's throat begins to inflate, preparing for its next move. The creature unleashes a blast of dark, viscous liquid directly at Noor. Noor braces himself for the impact. He glances back at the boy cowering behind him, realizing dodging is not an option. Seeing no other choice, he decides to block the attack. He swings his massive sword, intercepting the venomous projectile. The black liquid splatters across the field. Noor stands firm, his sword planted in the ground, having absorbed the brunt of the venomous blast. He coughs up blood, realizing with dread that the attack was poison. He recognizes that it is a definitely powerful venom. His vision blurs and a deep ache spreads through his body. He remembers Ines trying to tell him something as he dashed forward. He now realizes she was probably trying to warn him about the venom. Ines looks on, her face a mask of shock and concern. Rin's attendant cries out for her master Ines. She begs Lady Rinnan not to advance as a protective barrier materializes. Ines orders her to fall back, knowing her mission is to protect them, but realizing she may have to abandon Noor to his fate. She recalls a secret order given to her by the prince, adding to her inner turmoil. She remembers the prince warning her they were facing the greatest threat of their lives. He had ordered that in case of unfortunate scenarios, she should escort Rinnan and Noor to the religion kingdom Misura for shelter. Ines wonders if this ambush was planned, knowing they couldn't travel this path anymore. They are so close to the mountainous city, if the dragon follows them, the city itself would be in danger. She considers how Noor, the one supposedly connected to the demon who brought the dragon, rushed to aid without considering the situation. As a knight, she would have to analyze the pros and cons. But if Noor isn't a demon and simply prioritizes protecting those in need, then his presence is a blessing. She concludes that it is a blessing to have someone like Noor around during occasions like this. At that moment, a wave of regret washes over her. She thinks about how she could have stopped him from rushing in, and yet she didn't. Her attendant shouts a warning. The dragon is about to spit venom again, and her lady must prepare her guard. The attendant worriedly calls for her master, Ines. Rin cries out in despair that there is nothing they can do. Ines agrees, stating she's afraid he has already met his end. The creature prepares to strike the final blow. Ines thrusts her hands forward, determination etched on her face. A massive, complex magical barrier springs into existence. She shouts a warning for the others to take cover as the attack comes. She channels her power into the hexagonal shield. The dragon's venomous spray collides with the magical wall. Ines casts a spell to strengthen her defenses. She quickly moves to protect Rinne, pulling her to safety. The venom's potency is clear as it dissolves the very grass. Birds fall from the sky, victims of the toxic spray. The attendant pleads with Rinne not to risk her life, but Ines holds her back. Ines's mind drifts to her father, Dandalg, and his words about a person named Noru. She recalls her father, Dandalg, lamenting that he had run his mouth again. Everyone, including the king and prince, thought highly of Noor and his power, which filled Ines with envy and disappointment, but also a desire to be like him. She knew instantly that Noor was no match for the dragon, but she didn't stop him. She reasons that if he is an idiot for being so reckless, then she is a fool for letting him run to his death. A sound from within the fog startles her. She can't believe he is still fighting in there. Somehow she sees a silver lining in this predicament, recognizing the Noru her father had praised. The sounds of battle continue, even though he is surrounded by the venomous fog. Even while poisoned, Noor continues to battle the beast, his movements a blur of desperate defense. The attendant cries out for her master again. Ines feels helpless, knowing that inhaling the venom is fatal. She laments that while he is still fighting, she doesn't know what to do, as not even a holy potion could save his life now. The monster's attack impacts her barrier. A broken claw falls to the ground. Noor continues to deflect the monster's relentless assault. Ines thinks that even calling him an idiot isn't enough to describe his actions, fighting inside the venomous fog for the weak. She realizes that as foolish as it is for him to risk his own life for a stranger, it is the ideal of a shield she has been striving for. He is almost at his breaking point. The creature readies another attack. The toad spits another glob of venom. Noor prepares to swing his sword with all his remaining strength. His hand, ravaged by the poison, has lost several fingers. With a mighty heave, he parries the final attack. The exertion proves too much, and he collapses onto the grass. His mangled hand begins to glow with a soft light. The monster's eyes widen, seemingly in disbelief. Lying on the ground, Noor looks up and calmly says, "That seems better," as the tide of the battle remains uncertain. Noor recalls a time in his past when he went to the mountains to gather food. He proudly displays his haul, pleased to have collected so many ingredients. He sorts the items, setting some aside for drying and others for pickling. Deciding to cook some for himself, he adds them to a pot. As he tastes the food, he remembers his mother's stern warnings against eating such things. Later that night, inside his secluded house, something goes terribly wrong. A cup is knocked over, its contents spilling onto the floor. The table is a mess of overturned furniture and spilled food. Noor lies collapsed on the floor, the aftermath of a violent reaction staining the wood around him. He is barely conscious, sprawled on the floorboards. The culprit was the potent dragonbane mushroom, which he had accidentally collected and eaten. The mushroom's poison is rumored to be strong enough to kill dragons, and even a small taste could be fatal. He hadn't realized it was mixed in with his other ingredients, and soon after eating, he felt paralyzed and nauseated. The paralysis spread, and he could no longer feel his fingers. In a desperate attempt to survive, he continuously cast low heal on himself. The healing magic brought some relief, but he knew he was still in grave danger. A trail of blood marks his path from the house. He stumbled outside, splashing water on his face to clear his head. He wondered how long he had been unconscious. Though he could move again, he was weak, but his resolve was unshaken. He had to continue his training. Despite the poison still racking his body, Noor pushed himself through his grueling training. His body finally gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. He felt he still didn't have enough power. Lying on the ground, he felt he was on the brink of death. He collapsed again, vomiting blood from the exertion. The pain in his fingers spread through his arms, and his organs felt like they were deteriorating. He waited for death, but after a week, the pain suddenly vanished. To his astonishment, he realized he had recovered and the bleeding had stopped. His first sensation was an overwhelming hunger. Though still weak, he set out to hunt for food. However, in his weakened state, he was bitten by a large, venomous snake. He knew the snake was poisonous, and that a bite that deep should be fatal. Resigned to his fate, he lay on the ground, expecting the worst. But to his confusion, the swelling disappeared. He realized the poison didn't affect him at all. He carefully drained the snake's potent venom. He began to skin and prepare the snake meat. He remembered his mother's strict rule to never eat a poisonous snake, no matter how delicious it might be. But now, with a body that had seemingly developed poison resistance, he decided to take the risk. He skewered the meat and cooked it over an open fire. The smell of the roasting snake meat was overwhelmingly good. His stomach growled, and he decided that even if he died, it would be worth it. He took a hesitant bite. He savored the juicy flavor. The snake meat was unbelievably delicious. It stimulated his appetite more than anything he had ever eaten. In that moment, he no longer worried about the poison. Having eaten his rations for the next day, he knew he had to hunt more poisonous snakes. He was determined to taste that flavor once again. To confirm his theory, he found another poisonous snake. He let it bite him. The fangs sank into his arm, but he felt nothing. He realized he must have developed poison resistance. He figured it was a new skill he obtained from surviving the dragonbane mushroom. He even theorized that his low heal might have been enhanced with additional poison resistance. He wondered if he had any other poison-based skills. After that, he continued his search for poisonous plants and animals. He began to actively search for and taste them. There were times he almost died from powerful poisons, which he overcame with low heal. He didn't obtain new skills as he'd hoped, but he did discover something else. He discovered that many poisonous plants and animals were super delicious. Although there were exceptions, most were very nutritious. He could finally enjoy poisonous food without fear. He started eating a bowl of them, including the dragonbane mushroom, every week. Even if he got a minor nosebleed, he found the taste irresistible and knew he would be fine. The flashback ends, bringing him back to the present battle. The bleeding he experienced was just his body getting used to a new poison, but it was no longer a problem. The air is still thick with the monster's poison. Rollo had cast a timely low heal on Noor, who seemed to be okay. Rollo couldn't believe what he was seeing, thinking Noor was a beast. He watched as Noor single-handedly faced the terrifying monster. He recalled its deadly breath and grotesque claws. The toad inflates its throat, preparing for a decisive, last-ditch attack. Noor notes that its throat is now a much bigger target, and he prepares his counter. With a powerful cry, Noor executes a perfect parry, striking the monster's inflated throat with incredible force. The parry sends a shockwave through the toad, causing its head to explode. Lin watches in stunned silence. Inez is equally shocked by the display of power. As black smoke dissipates from the monster's corpse, Noor stands over his defeated foe, stating he wouldn't let it attack twice. The battle is finally over. Having been so focused on the battle, Noor's first thought is about food. He imagines that the poisonous toad would taste delicious once cooked. He quickly shakes the thought away, realizing he needs to check if everyone is okay. Noor approaches Rollo and asks if he's okay. Rollo, concerned by Noor's battered appearance, thinks about getting treatment for him. Noor notes it was a close call and asks if Rollo came alone. Ashamed, Rollo admits that he was the one who led the monster there. Rollo mutters that he was commanded to take the monster to the city. Noor overhears this, confused by the mention of a promise. Noor has a shocking realization. He believes the toad was food. Noor's mind races, concluding that Rollo was transporting fresh food and using concealment to avoid bandits. He imagines a farm full of gigantic toads, an important trade good for a specialized city. He turns to Rollo and apologizes for destroying his goods. He promises to make up for it, even if it takes time. A bewildered Rollo tells him he doesn't have to do that. Noor insists, but Rollo repeats that it isn't necessary. Noor seems to accept this, but is still confused. Noor asks why he would bring such a terrifying monster so far. Rollo quietly explains that he can manipulate them, revealing his power. Noor is stunned. He can't believe Rollo can manipulate monsters. He's amazed that such a skill exists, while Rollo seems confused by the term skill. Noor thinks it sounds incredibly cool, asking if it's a God-sent gift, as Rollo explains it's his innate ability. Rollo reveals the truth. He is a demon, and all his people have this ability. He explains that because of it, many people fear and hate him. Noor simply processes this information, repeating the word demon thoughtfully. To Rollo's surprise, Noor's only reaction is to remark that demons have a cool ability. Noor tells Rollo that he neither hates nor fears him. He admits that he just envies him. Rollo is stunned by this confession. Noor explains that Rollo's ability is incredibly helpful for things like farming, delivery, and protection. The word helpful triggers a memory of his abusers questioning his use. Rollo is taken aback, wondering if he heard correctly. The sincerity in Noor's voice makes him question everything. Tears well up in his eyes as he asks if it's true, if he can really become helpful. Rollo reflects on how Noor, who has an innate ability, doesn't seem to recognize his own potential. Rollo believes that someone like Noor will always be helpful. Noor reassures him that of course he can, and that he will even surpass him. He places a hand on Rollo's head and tells him he just needs to keep moving forward. Innes watches the aftermath of the fierce and tense battle in disbelief. The sounds of clashing and the earth itself splitting felt as if the sky and ground were torn apart. She still can't believe that a human not only rivaled a dragon in combat, but was the last one standing. Rhine rushes to Noor's side, calling out his name in concern. Seeing him covered in blood, she asks if he is all right, but Noor simply reassures her that he's fine. He dismisses the blood, showing her that his wounds have somehow already healed on their own. Rhine stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend how it's possible, and insists on healing him. As Rhine touches Noor's arm, she confirms that his wounds have indeed vanished. She stares in shock, realizing his wounds have truly healed. Rhine apologizes for her worry, and Noor nonchalantly boasts about his high poison resistance. Innes observes this, knowing that even if the poison isn't fatal, its aura is incredibly potent. The withered surroundings are proof of the aura's power, meaning anyone who can withstand it must be special. Innes realizes there is only one possibility. Innes recalls what Sir Sign, the sacred healer, once showed her, the sacred aura, an ability that purifies and heals all wounds. She remembers that it is considered a gift for those who train to an absolute level, and that very few have ever become a sage. Rhine questions how Noor could possess such an ability at his age, when even Sir Sign had to train past 40 to achieve it. Noor tells Rhine to check on Rollo, who looks unwell and mutters that he's fine. Innes observes Rollo's fair skin, light blue hair, and dark-colored eyes. Rhine suddenly blurts out her realization, startling the boy. She asks Rollo directly if he is a demon. Noor praises Rhine for her keen observation. Rhine asks what he plans to do with the boy, now that his identity is known. Noor simply decides they should take him for a ride, to which Rhine nervously agrees. Innes reflects on the nature of demons, who are feared for their ability to manipulate monsters, and knows there are few of them left. Rhine questions Noor's decision, reminding him that the boy is a demon. She worries that taking him along may attract more monsters. Noor acknowledges the damage to the farms but seems unconcerned by her warning. He worries that delivering the poisonous toad will be delayed, which a shocked Rhine mishears as Black Dragon. Noor presses Rollo for details, asking who he promised to deliver the monster to in the city. The boy can only say that he doesn't know and wasn't told. Ines steps in, telling Rollo that concealing the truth won't help and that they might be able to aid him if he speaks up. Overwhelmed, Rollo cries that he really doesn't know anything. Seeing the terror in his eyes, Ines understands his situation. She realizes that the boy is undoubtedly a slave. Though slavery is forbidden in her country, she knows he was likely used as a pawn elsewhere. Ines asks if he has a home or if he can return on his own. Rollo explains that he was blindfolded and has no idea where he is. Noor declares his intention to help, planning to take Rollo near the city before letting him go. Ines thinks this is too risky, as he is still a demon, even if he is a child. She believes they can't trust him easily, and her disapproval makes Rhine nervous. Rhine is left speechless by Ines's silent disapproval. When Noor asks what's wrong, she quickly says it's nothing. Ines recalls her father's advice, to believe what she sees with her own eyes, not through rumors or myths. She questions what justifies her discrimination against a boy her age just because he is a demon. Ines sees Rollo as a poor, solitary boy with nowhere to return to. She feels ashamed of how mean she has been. Noor kindly asks for the boy's name, and he quietly responds, Roro. Noor smiles warmly, remarking that Roro is a nice, easy-to-remember name. Having had a change of heart, Rhine tells Ines she agrees with Noor and asks if they can take Roro with them. Ines understands her feelings but tries to explain the complication. Noor cuts in, saying he can walk if there's no room, but Ines clarifies that isn't the problem. She reveals that their next destination, the religious kingdom of Misura, forbids demons from entering. Rhine explains that in the past, demons were regarded as mortal enemies of the god, making it challenging to travel with Roro. She knows that leaving him in a town is dangerous, but taking him to Misura risks provoking hostility. She is conflicted, but still wants to help. A new presence appears, muttering how strange the situation is. An unknown man stands before them, declaring that the one he was sent for should have already died. The blindfolded man finishes his thought, stating his target should be long dead. Noor stares intently at the menacing newcomer. Rhine looks on with wide-eyed shock. Ines narrows her eyes, assessing the new threat. The man stands atop the toad's corpse, identifying it as the delivery he'd heard about. Noor asks if he was the one who assigned the task to Roro, but the man says he was just hired for the job. The man seems surprised that Noor survived the monster's defiling aura. He turns to Noor and asks if he was the one who defeated the monster. Noor confirms that he defeated the monster and apologizes, still thinking it was valuable goods. The man is confused by the apology, wondering why Noor would say sorry. He states he has nothing to do with the delivery and couldn't care less about it. Pointing directly at Roro, he declares that the boy is what truly interests him. The blindfolded warrior confirms he only came to get the boy. Noor understands, the man is here for Roro. The man licks his lips, stating that Roro can be worth a lot of money. He then begins to walk away, seemingly unconcerned. Without warning, Noor leaps forward, parrying a surprise attack from the man. The warrior seems amused, asking why Noor doesn't just give up on the boy. Roro asks if the man wants to capture him, while Noor remains silent and vigilant. The warrior confirms he doesn't care about Roro's name, he just wants the boy who will fetch a huge bounty. The warrior clarifies that he wants Roro's corpse, to be precise, and launches another attack. Noor is confused, asking why he isn't there to escort the boy to safety. The man mocks the strange request he received, capture the boy alive or kill him if possible. Noor blocks another attack. He tells the warrior he can't understand anything he's saying. The warrior dismisses him, saying there's no point in explaining. Then, in a burst of speed, he vanishes, taking Noor and Roro with him. Noor is shocked, exclaiming that his opponent disappeared. The warrior reappears, aiming a strike at Roro, but Noor instantly intercepts with a parry. The force of the impact shatters the warrior's weapon, much to his surprise. Rhine looks on in shock. She is stunned, wondering how the blindfolded man moved so fast that even Noor couldn't trace him. Ines pulls Rhine behind her, telling her to take cover. The warrior recovers, noting that there is something very unusual about Noor. The warrior doesn't relent, flipping through the air and launching another swift attack. Once again, Noor meets the strike head-on with a perfectly timed parry. The clash creates a massive shockwave. The warrior's second sword shatters against Noor's defense, sending fragments flying. The battle rages on with intense speed and power. Noor sweats, finding the force of the attacks unbelievable. He internally notes that the strike from the dagger is as powerful as a bull, or perhaps even more. The warrior stares at his broken dagger in disbelief. He finds the situation interesting. He questions why his attack failed. He launches a powerful punch, demanding to know why Noor hasn't died yet. The blast wave from their clash is so strong that Rhine struggles to stay on her feet. Ines shields Rhine, warning her that it's too dangerous to get close. With a grim expression, Ines identifies their enemy, the notorious Deathbringer. The man is revealed to be an infamous S-ranked adventurer. Their opponent is Deathbringer, Sadhu, and their chances of victory seem slim. In the bustling commercial city of Serencia, a hero named Sadhu was born. He began his adventurer career at 15, and by 20, he achieved the coveted S rank. His potential was so great that even the title Dragon Slayer felt inadequate. A quick and comprehensive learner, Sadhu studied sword techniques, magic, and even the alchemy of legendary dwarves. His life was one of admiration and envy, always in the spotlight. But then, a terrible incident occurred. He was responsible for the murder of an entire merchant family, 36 people in total. When questioned, he blatantly admitted to it, stating it was a simple request with a significant reward. And so, the name Sadhu became synonymous with terror. One guild member slammed his hand down, demanding they revoke Sadhu's qualification as an adventurer. Another agreed, insisting that he must be severely punished. However, one member urged them to consider his past contributions to the guild. An older member agreed, saying it would be a pity to expel such a gifted adventurer. A bespectacled member offered a loophole, noting the victim's illegal activities could classify Sadhu's actions as unorthodox law enforcement. The incident was forgotten, and he continued to accept requests. The professional adventurer's motto is to never question the requests. The sole aim is to take on and complete the job regardless of personal feelings. Considering all requests equal, morality meant nothing to him in the face of overwhelming strength. Upon completing a request, he single-handedly decimated an army and executed all the royal members, dyeing the nation's history in blood. People back then had yet to fully understand what that meant. For Sadhu, it was as simple as a goblin skirmish, and with that, the reign of a small nation was destroyed. While some considered him a hero, the ruling class grew increasingly afraid of the man who didn't differentiate between good and evil. As a result, fear of him spread. Ines recalls that the former S-ranked adventurer Sadhu was supposed to have been killed by the Guild Alliance. Noor confirms that according to records, he should be dead, but Ines states his death was merely a cover story. A large sum of money was paid to recruit elite adventurers for the job. The mountain of corpses from the thousands of adventurers who faced him helped prove his true strength, with the battle being passed off as a fight against a dragon. The guild, realizing Sadhu was impossible to kill, announced the hunt was successful to deter others. Those who know the truth call him the Deathbringer. Sadhu growls in frustration as another one of his weapons shatters. Noor can't believe that even weapons made of orichalcum and dragon task are breaking. He apologizes for breaking the weapons and asks why Sadhu is suddenly attacking him. Sadhu brushes off the question, stating he doesn't criticize. Sadhu feels there's something off about his opponent, wondering how he has persisted for so long. He calls Noor a weirdo with a weird sword, acknowledging its unusual nature. Deciding he's had enough, Sadhu declares it's time to get serious. He prepares to unleash all of his tricks. Sadhu's sword shatters into dark energy. Ines recognizes the technique with a look of horror, exclaiming, "This is it." From the energy, countless cross-shaped blades materialize before him. He can replicate a sword into many copies in a matter of seconds. This is one of his secret alchemy-based skills, used to destroy hundreds of enemies. With arms outstretched, Sadhu unleashes his attack, Silver Cross. He tells them they can destroy as many of the crosses as they wish. Surrounded by his creations, he sardonically asks if they will take their time to enjoy it. Noor yells Parry as he desperately deflects the incoming blades. Rin watches in horror. He grits his teeth, realizing he can't block them all. Using his body as a shield for Rinne, he takes several hits. Noor grunts in pain as he continues to fight. The silver crosses continue their relentless assault. More blades embed themselves in Noor's arm as he protects Rinne. Ines realizes this is bad. Sadhu notes that with the number of crosses increasing, they won't last long. Ines desperately wants to help them. She grunts, conflicted. She stops herself. Her mind races, weighing her duty to protect Princess Rinne against her immediate desire to intervene. Looking at Princess Rinne, she makes her decision. Steeling herself, Ines announces her intention to go and aid Noor. The crosses continue their chaotic assault. Noor knows he can't keep blocking the attacks and healing his wounds simultaneously. Sadhu believes their efforts are futile, but as the crosses close in, Ines intervenes, casting God's shield. A powerful defensive barrier erupts. The force of the shield's activation startles Sadhu. His replicated swords shatter against the impenetrable barrier. Ines materializes, her shield protecting Noor and Rinne. She apologizes for her late arrival, stating that because her duty is to protect the princess, she cannot allow Noor to die. Noor breathes a sigh of relief, stating that Ines arrived just in time. Ines unleashes the full power of her shield, blasting the remaining crosses away. The power of the shield sends Sadhu flying. A massive shockwave clears the area of the remaining crosses. Noor recognizes the magical shield's sigil, realizing it's the one she showed him in the carriage. He knows it can only defend against the crosses, not attack. Ines tells Sir Noor that while she can negate the attack, they can't stay on the defensive forever. She offers to handle defense while he finds a way to counterattack. The crosses swarm again, seeking a way through the barrier. Noor observes the sentient-like movement of the crosses as they search for holes in the barrier. Remembering a past technique, he takes out the broken pieces of the poisonous toad. He calls out to Ines. Noor instructs Ines to remove the barrier on his signal, assuring her that he is sure about his plan. Ines looks concerned, questioning if it's really okay. Noor responds with a confident, pretty sure. He clenches his fist, internally steeling himself, certain he can do it. Noor cries, now, and activates multiple skills, body enhancement, shinobi step, and launching rock. The fragments of the toad fly through the air, meeting the swarm of crosses. He unleashes a volley of projectiles, breaking the incoming crosses. Ines watches, amazed at how he is breaking the crosses using broken pieces from the dragon. Noor tells Ines not to worry, as he plans to gradually break all of them. Ines can only say, I see. He continues his counterattack, shattering the crosses. Explosions of light fill the area as the two attacks collide. The last of the crosses dissipate. Noor realizes there aren't many left, and that he's almost done, but then he is startled. He looks around, wondering where Sadhu went. Ines watches, her eyes wide with surprise. Sadhu appears behind Ines, but Noor intercepts his attack with a parry. Noor admits that it was a close call, and he thought he wouldn't make it. Sadhu remarks that he feels the same, calling Noor unexpectedly tough. Sadhu examines his broken dagger in disbelief, noting that even one made of adamantite has shattered. He asks Noor if he still wants to fight, to which Noor calmly replies, no. Standing amidst the wreckage of his weapons, Sadhu declares the fight is over for today, as he needs to gather materials for repairs. Rin mentions a festival in the royal capital. Ines suggests that perhaps they will meet again there. Noor thinks about the festival. He wonders about the royal capital, envisioning the large city. Ines questions the nature of the upcoming festival in the royal capital. The blindfolded man admits he doesn't know, but he's sure it will be a lot of fun. The blindfolded man announces his departure, calling Noor a weird guy as he leaves. Noor waves a simple goodbye. Noor questions the man's statement. The man reaffirms his opinion, stating that Noor is the weirdest person he has ever met. A young girl named Rollo appears, telling the man he was lucky this time. She follows him, mentioning the good reward she would have gotten for his capture. Rollo angrily stomps on one of his broken weapons. The blindfolded man merely smirks in response. The blindfolded man unleashes a swift kick, sending shards flying. Noor springs into action, deflecting a projectile aimed at Rollo. He catches the shard just before it hits Rollo, who stares in shock. Acknowledging Noor's presence, the blindfolded man decides to retreat. He disappears in a burst of smoke, leaving the party to deal with the aftermath. Rin trembles, overwhelmed by the power displayed in the recent fight. Rin voices her concern about the capital, which Ines agrees is suspicious. Noor notices their worry and offers to turn back since they haven't gone far. Rollo trembles with fear. Noor recognizes her and says her name. She asks if they are from the royal capital. She asks if they dislike going to the capital, implying she cannot join them. Overcome with panic, Rollo begs them not to go back. Rollo explains that she can feel a great danger heading for the capital, one that could destroy the whole city. She insists this new threat is far worse than the black dragon they just faced. Ines lowers her head, unable to follow the new command. Rin urgently tells Ines they must return to the capital at once. Ines explains that she cannot obey, as Sir Rhine ordered otherwise. Rin realizes her trip to Misura was an evacuation plan orchestrated by her brother. Rin reflects that as his sister, she can guess what her brother Rhine is thinking. She worries that if she simply obeys without question, he may never trust her with anything important again. Ines pleads with her to prioritize her own safety and continue to Misura. Rin vehemently disagrees, declaring that they must go back to support the capital now that they know it's in danger. Rin argues that it is meaningless for her to escape alone. Ines starts to object, but Rinne reminds her of what happens to people who lose their homeland. She knows that simply trying to escape will lead to the same outcome. With conviction, she states that this is no time to be selfish. Ines closes her eyes and agrees to the plan. Ines agrees to return to the capital, and a grateful Rinne thanks her. Rollo announces that she will join them. Noor is surprised by Rollo's decision. Rollo explains that she might be able to help, as her friend is likely the one controlling the monsters. Rin senses the coming danger is greater than she initially thought. But her faith in Noor, who has defeated powerful foes before, gives her hope. She is determined to get Noor to the royal capital, no matter the personal cost. The trouble in the capital started with the sudden appearance of the Goblin Emperor and other magic beasts. Adventurers from the guild were dispatched across the city to deal with the monster threat. Rian muses that while there has been destruction, the capital can be rebuilt as long as the people survive. Rian spreads a map, aware that the next phase of the problem will be tense. He suspects the attacks so far were just a test, with worse to come. He relies on the elite guards, including the hooded Karoo, who have been deployed to find the enemy's next target. These guards are actively investigating, proving their worth. But even after a thorough search of abandoned buildings, nothing was found. His forces carefully tracked every possible hiding place on land and water. He even considered an attack from the air. Rian stands by a window, contemplating the one place he hasn't checked, the space above the clouds. Rian turns his gaze towards the sky. His eyes widen in shock as he spots something unbelievable. A strange reflection appears in the window pane. From outside the grand estate, the impossible sight becomes clear. A colossal sphere of energy materializes in the sky, high above the clouds. Rian stares up in disbelief, questioning if what he's seeing is real. Rian reasons that the enemy can't be all-powerful and decides he must act. He quickly casts a spell to disarm the hidden threat. The sphere of energy ripples and disappears. The true threat reveals itself, a colossal black demon dragon, previously hidden by the spell. Rian recognizes the legendary black demon dragon, a creature he thought was only a myth. Legends told of its destructive power, capable of wiping out a city overnight. The once thriving city was reduced to a field of death. He struggles to understand how the legendary dragon could have appeared here. He shouts in frustration, questioning if his enemies are insane. As the dragon looms, Rhine realizes it must have been intentionally awakened from its long sleep. Rian looks up at the dragon, overcome with a sense of hopelessness. A knight approaches, snapping him out of his despair. Rian immediately orders the complete evacuation of the royal capital. He commands his knights to forcibly remove anyone who refuses to leave. Rin's carriage crests a hill overlooking the city. She urgently tells the driver to stop. Rin runs from the carriage towards the overlook. The entire group stares in shock at the sight of the black demon dragon. Rin whispers that it's impossible, recognizing the black demon dragon. Noor admits he's never seen a dragon so large. Rin worries about what her father will do, with so many people still in the city. She knows her father, the king, will undoubtedly fight to protect everyone. She worries that if her father confronts the dragon, only destruction will follow. Overwhelmed, she falls to her knees, pleading for her father to flee. Noor asks if they should go back to help, but Rinne says no. Tears in her eyes, she laments that there is no more time. Noor reassures a frantic Rinne that they will definitely make it in time. Noor suggests running on foot, feeling confident after his recent battles. Rin understands he wants to use her Wind Blast skill and, despite the risks, prepares to cast it. Noor insists that the power from his sword will protect him from harm. He tells himself that even if it's painful, he can handle it if it's necessary. Rin remembers he was unharmed last time, and nervously agrees. Rin asks Ines for help, and Rollo agrees to assist. Ines creates a concentrated shield and directs Noor to take his position. Rin tells herself there's nothing to worry about, since Noor said he'd be fine. With a determined look, Rinne signals for them to start. Rin weaves together multiple defensive spells. She begins to enhance and charge the cumulative spell. Aware of the immense power she is about to unleash, she steels her resolve. Rin unleashes her ultimate technique, a 6 choruses wind blast, creating a massive vortex of power. Rin stands alone in the aftermath of her powerful spell, wondering if Noor will make it in time. She watches him fly towards the capital, whispering his title. Her final thought is a quiet plea for him to be careful. King Clay's face is grim as he listens to the ultimatum. The kingdom's forces are shown battling monstrous creatures. The demand hangs in the air: concede all of the labyrinth's resources. The king's advisors argue that giving up the labyrinth is too much to ask, as it's their kingdom's only resource. Emperor Derrida III condescendingly questions if King Clay's understands the consequences of his refusal. King Clay's listens with a hardened expression. King Clay's stands to leave, stating that it's the emperor who doesn't understand the situation. Derrida dismisses any attempt at diplomacy, offering them a chance to live if they simply obey. He menacingly tells the king of the small country to prepare himself, pointing to its location on a map. With a smirk, the emperor declares that destroying a country with nothing but a labyrinth is a simple task. Watching the destruction, King Clay's bitterly reflects on the emperor's claim of simplicity. He questions if the conflict truly had to escalate to this extent. He reflects on how he has delegated command to his son, Prince Rhine, who has achieved more than he could have imagined. The disastrous meeting with the emperor has led the kingdom to ruin. King Clay's face is a mask of fury and frustration. He wonders if it's truly possible to destroy all evil in the world. King Clay's stands resolute before the terrifying black demon dragon, declaring that he will deal with it himself. Rin and Ines ride swiftly through the war-torn city. Rin thinks back on how quickly she returned, only to find this chaos. She looks at the burning buildings, shocked that the peaceful city has been turned into a battlefield. Rin calls out to Ines as they ride. Rollo cries out that something is approaching them. Ines shields Rinne as a wall explodes beside them. Rin cries out in shock, identifying the creature as a goblin emperor. Ines raises a magical shield, deflecting the goblin's powerful strike. Ines tells Rinne to let her take care of the enemy. Rin shouts Ines's name in alarm. Rollo warns them of an attack from above as 2 more goblins descend. Ines and Rinne fight side by side against the powerful goblins. Ines casts a shield spell to protect Rinne and directs her to safety. The 3 giant goblins stand before them, their path blocked by Ines's shield. Rin thanks Ines, who replies that it was nothing and tells her to stay close. Rin looks on with a worried expression. Rin thinks about how these monsters are smaller than others. Noor has fought, but still extraordinarily powerful. She realizes that while the shield holds, it's a stalemate, and the number of enemies will likely increase. In her moment of doubt, she thinks of Noor, wondering what he would do in a situation like this. Ines tells Rinne that compared to the dragon, these are just goblins, and they should deal with them one at a time. Rin unleashes a swirling ice attack. She calls out the name of her spell, Ice Dance. However, she watches in dismay as the fast-moving goblin easily evades her spell. Rollo apologizes for what's to come and commands the enemy to stand still. The goblin stops dead in its tracks. Shocked but resolute, Rinne casts her next spell, Ice Hell. The 3 goblins are completely frozen by Rinne's spell. The ice shatters around them, but they remain immobile. Rin orders Ines to drop the shield, and Ines leaps forward to attack. Ines unleashes her ultimate attack, the Divine Sword. The powerful beam of light cuts through all 3 frozen enemies in an instant. The Divine Sword is explained as an absolute sharp weapon capable of piercing even golden armor. Having dispatched 3 enemies, Ines tells them to hurry before more arrive. Rin realizes that Ines holds the title of Swordmaster, but something else has surprised her even more. Rin reflects on Rollo's incredible power, wondering if the child is of the demon race to possess such an ability. Ines tells Rinne to hurry. Rin steels her resolve. King Clay's stands atop the castle, a warrior ready for battle. He smiles, a familiar feeling reminding him of his days exploring the labyrinth. He admits to himself that he is not fit to be a king. This role suits him better. The dragon opens its massive jaws, preparing its attack. It gathers an orb of destructive energy in its mouth. King Clay's identifies the attack as the legendary Breath of Destruction, noting the distortion of space caused by its immense magic power. He hopes that his daughter Rinne has made it out safely. He puts his faith in Noor and the Swordmaster Ines to protect the royal family. He chastises himself for only caring about his daughter in this dire situation. With sword in hand, he resolves to fulfill his role until the very end. King Clay's swings his sword, unleashing his ultimate attack, the explosive sword. He channels all of his magic power into this one strike. The powerful energy blast flies towards the distant dragon. The dragon's breath attack meets the king's, but a new force intervenes with the shout of Parry. The parried attack strikes the dragon directly, causing a massive explosion on its chest. The dragon is thrown backward through the air by the force of its own reflected power. The black demon dragon falls from the sky as a tiny figure, Nor, is seen descending. He has arrived. A flash of light pierces the darkness. The light erupts with concussive force. Nor is sent hurtling through the air, his face a mask of shock. Nor's eyes widen in alarm as he plummets. He mistakenly believes he was blown away by Rinne's magic, possibly fainting from the shock. Realizing the fall will be fatal, he prepares for impact. He manages to use body strengthening just before he hits the ground. He survives the landing, carving a massive trench in the ground. Though he avoided a passive fall, he realizes he can't stop his forward momentum. He continues to skid across the ground at an incredible speed. With no time left, he hurtles towards a massive castle wall, realizing it has to be his target. Bracing himself, Nor smashes clean through the stone wall. He looks up in relief, thinking he's made it. His relief is short-lived as he sees the colossal dragon looming over the city. The dragon is now directly in his path. The dragon seems just as surprised by the sudden appearance. To Nor's horror, he realizes he hasn't slowed down and is about to slam right into the beast. He picks himself up from the ground, relieved that focusing on swinging his sword somehow ensured his survival. He imagines Rinne's worried face, thinking her magic isn't meant to shoot at humans. He resolves that the next time he sees her, he must tell her this. Nor finally gets a clear look at the colossal, three-headed dragon standing before him. He sweats, realizing the gravity of the situation. This is not good. The dragon, still disoriented, tries to piece together what happened. It wonders about the strange light from the small thing and why it suddenly fell from the sky, concluding that this is not normal. The dragon spots Nor amidst the rubble, dismissing him as a small thing holding a needle. It wonders if this tiny creature is going to get in its way. Annoyed by the interruption, its massive claw digs into the ground. With a roar of frustration, the dragon smashes the ruined castle towers around it. The stone structures crumble under its immense power. The dragon glares down at him. Amidst the swirling dust and crumbling ruins, Nor stands his ground, his sword gleaming. The dragon glares, wondering what else this human can do. It's enraged, questioning how the human is still unharmed, but Nor knows that's not the only problem. Nor calmly parries the blow. The dragon's tail whips through the air, but the hit is deflected, leaving the beast to think it impossible. The dragon lets out a furious roar, its frustration causing the very ground to shake. In the face of this overwhelming power, Nor remains completely unfazed. The dragon cannot believe its tail lash was parried so easily. It decides it should have been serious from the start. It gathers energy for an attack it's sure will leave Nor unable to get up again. A blinding beam of energy erupts from the dragon's mouth, streaking towards Nor. With impossible calm, he meets the attack head-on, his sword deflecting the blast with a perfect parry. The dragon watches in stunned silence. Its eyes are wide with disbelief as its ultimate attack is rendered harmless. The deflected energy beam soars high into the sky, tracing a graceful arc against the clouds. Far above the city, the parried blast detonates in a massive, silent explosion. The dragon stares at the distant explosion, processing what it just witnessed. It looks down at the smoldering crater where its attack should have annihilated its target. An unsettling feeling washes over the dragon as it finally comprehends the situation. It recognizes the unmistakable traces of a double bless on Nor. This small person, this arrogant human standing before it as an enemy, is the one in its way. Its pride shattered and its power challenged. The dragon's rage boils over. It unleashes a furious roar, incensed that a mere human dares to stand against it. The giant dragon continues its ferocious attack, smashing its claws down with earth-shattering force. Nor watches coolly as the ground around him erupts from the impact. Giving in to its primal instincts, the dragon resolves to completely destroy its opponent. It plans to tear Nor to pieces before stomping him into dust, leaving no trace behind. The dragon whips its massive tail, but Nor meets the strike with his sword, creating a brilliant flash of light as the blow is parried. Amidst the swirling debris, Nor effortlessly deflects another attack. The dragon lunges with its massive jaws snapping shut. Nor remains steadfast, ready to counter the beast's fury. A torrent of destructive energy erupts from the dragon's maw. The attack culminates in a massive, blinding explosion. When the smoke clears, the dragon is left in stunned disbelief. It cannot comprehend why Noor is still alive. In its thousands of years of existence, no creature that dared to confront it has ever survived. The dragon contemplates the fundamental principle of its world. The strong rule and the weak must submit. This is the instinct that has guided it for eons. As it lunges forward to finally devour the tiny human, it is met with an impossible defiance that challenges the very core of its being. Noor once again parries the attack, turning aside the dragon's massive fangs with his blade. The beast recoils from the impossible defense. A profound realization begins to dawn on the dragon. The dragon finally understands. The little man before it holds no hostility, no killing intent. Faced with someone who doesn't even perceive it as an enemy, the dragon's rage evaporates, replaced by a shocking certainty. The realization shatters the dragon's perception of strength and weakness. It comes to the devastating conclusion that, compared to this incomprehensible human, it is the dragon itself that is one of the weak. With its fighting spirit completely broken, the colossal beast collapses. Its massive head comes to rest at Noor's feet, who can only stand there, weary and utterly bewildered by the sudden turn of events. Noor is confused. He wonders what just happened. Moments ago, the dragon was a whirlwind of destruction. Now it lies before him, completely passive and defenseless. Watching from a safe distance, Mian, Rollo, and Ines are stunned. Mian exclaims that Noor's parry is even stronger than the dragon. They gaze upon the unbelievable scene, the tiny warrior standing victorious over the immense defeated beast. With the danger seemingly past, Lin rushes to Noor's side, concerned about his injuries. He casually reassures her, showing that his arm has already miraculously healed. Watching from a distance, Ines Harness remarks that after seeing Noor withstand the black dragon's poison, she thought nothing could surprise her anymore. Noor turns his attention to Rollo. Having connected the dots in his own unique way, he approaches her with gratitude. He sincerely thanks her, now convinced that she was the one who truly saved him and ensured his survival. Rollo is baffled by his thanks and denies having done anything. Noor, however, misinterprets her denial, concluding she must have been the one to pacify the dragon. He believes she is trying to keep her immense power a secret. Lost in his own world, he decides he should act more dignified after such a great, albeit misattributed, achievement. Noor asks Rollo for a favor. He asks her to use her supposed power to send the now docile dragon back to its original habitat. Lin questions this decision, arguing that it would be better to kill the creature, but Noor acknowledges the dragon's destructive past. He explains that he can't bring himself to execute the beast now that it seems to be offering its life in defeat. He tells Rollo not to force herself if she doesn't want to. She understands his selfish request and agrees to try talking with the dragon. Rollo closes her eyes and reaches out, attempting to communicate with the defeated dragon. Suddenly, she gasps, recoiling in surprise, and a concerned Noor immediately asks her what's wrong. Rollo explains that the dragon will obey any order from its master. Taking the opportunity, Noor asks her to tell the dragon to return home and never harm humans again. Rollo relays the message, and the dragon agrees. Noor is left in awe, convinced that this admirable child is destined for greatness. As the massive dragon takes flight and disappears into the clouds. Lin and Ines watch, both expressing their relief at the unexpectedly peaceful conclusion. Noor quietly reflects on how his own story differs from the grand dragon taming tales. His thoughts are interrupted when Lin senses something approaching. A brilliant flash of light erupts in the distance. A violent beam of violet light streaks across the sky. The departing dragon sends a frantic warning as Lin recognizes the ominous glow. The attack, which Lin calls out as Brunak, seems to have been aimed at the now departed black demon dragon. From a distant vantage point, a soldier confirms the target has been brought down. He reports to his leader, King Derrida III. King Derrida III lets out a chilling laugh. He mocks the foolishness of the Christ kingdom, revealing that they allowed monsters to flood the city by neglecting their labyrinth. Derrida clarifies his sinister plot. His army's arrival is not a rescue but an invasion. Their true goal is to seize the labyrinth of no return. He blames the fall of the Christ kingdom on its stupid king, who foolishly rejected his proposals and failed to see the labyrinth's value. Derrida coldly orders his troops to kill anyone loyal to the old king, declaring that only the victor's version of history matters. He specifically commands the recovery of all labyrinth objects. His focus is particularly on a certain black sword. Looking over the city, a soldier notes that only a quarter of it has been destroyed, implying much is left to be taken. Derrida dismisses the legendary black demon dragon. He finds the situation awkward, but moves forward with his plan. He admits his army is there to help, but their form of assistance involves destroying the ruins even further to suit their own ends. The source of their power is the 4-gate Brunak cannon. Its power, surpassing even a demon dragon, is enhanced by the devil's heart. They also possess the 3-engine Aegis, a device that creates a mobile magic defense wall. As Derrida schemes, he's alerted to an approaching figure. A scout identifies it as the Goblin Emperor, nursing an injured arm but still a formidable sight. Derrida sees this as a perfect opportunity to demonstrate his army's power. A soldier moves to intercept, deploying a magic shield against the charging beast. The armored soldiers swarm the Goblin Emperor. Their coordinated attack overwhelms the powerful monster. The Goblin Emperor is utterly destroyed. A soldier coolly reports that the equipment is functioning normally. His army is equipped with magic swords that cut steel, and shields that repel all attacks. Their magic armor, reserved for elites, can neutralize most magic. With industrial power allowing for mass production, he declares that the age of individual strength is over. Individual power is no longer necessary. He frames the entire invasion as a performance, a story that will be told for generations about the fate of fools who dare to oppose the might of the demon royal kingdom. A soldier spots something else through his spyglass. Derrida looks and sees a figure in the distance, recognizing her. He identifies her as the shield god, Ines, and grimaces, wondering if her presence is why the dragon didn't behave as he'd planned. Derrida recalls the legends of the 6 saints, the impossibly powerful main fighting force of the Christ kingdom. He identifies Ines as one of them, a monster, even above a god. He sees her as a perfectly timed new target. He gives a chilling order, shoot the Brunak at her. The massive cannon whirs to life, its systems locking on. Magic power is compressed for the shot. The opponent is the shield god Ines, and the value of this tool is great. Derrida laments that while he'd like to capture and use the shield god, the situation calls for a more direct approach. Derrida decides it's a pity, but killing her is the most efficient choice. He believes his demon science makes legends like her obsolete. He predicts that even if she blocks the attack, the resulting heat will instantly evaporate her without a trace. With preparations complete, the order to fire is given. Derrida watches with sadistic glee, proclaiming that this is the moment a living legend ends. The devastating beam of energy crosses the landscape, striking its target in a massive, blinding explosion. Derrida and his soldiers watch from afar, confident in their weapon's power. The triumphant smirk on Derrida's face vanishes, replaced by utter shock and disbelief. Back at the impact site, Noor stands with his sword raised, having parried the blast. He looks around, dazed, wondering what just happened. Noor spots the source of the attack, a massive army in the distance, which Lin confirms is the royal army. Ines urges a tactical retreat, stating they can't possibly fight such a large force. As she speaks, she spots another incoming enemy attack. Seeing a volley of projectiles hurtling toward them, Ines shouts for everyone to get close. She quickly raises her god shield, creating a protective barrier just as the attack rains down. The projectiles crash against the shield like rain. Ines advises a careful retreat once they've assessed the army's position. But before they can move, Rollo nervously points out another glowing light from the enemy line. Rollo sees another light glowing in the distance. Ines realizes it's another cannon shot, one so powerful that even her shield might not stop the impact, effectively cutting off their retreat. Unfazed, Noor decides that if you don't have a way, you make one. He declares he will distract them. He explains that by moving forward, he can disperse the enemy's attack, creating an opening for the others to escape. Lin voices her concern, but Noor is confident he can't be hit and plans to return. He knows he can't rush in without a plan, but sees value in attracting their attention. After a moment of resolve, Lin accepts his plan. She gathers her magic and offers her help. Lin, now calling herself Rin, tells Noor to brace for a concussion. He is confused by her words. She smiles, reassuring him that she has adjusted the power and direction. The horrifying realization of her plan dawns on him just a second too late. She unleashes a destructive wind, launching Noor forward at incredible speed. As he hurtles through the air, he feels that familiar life-threatening danger once again, and is certain that this time, he's truly dead. Hurtling through the air, Noor grits his teeth, determined to make it. He activates his physical enhancement ability. Noor positions his dark blade behind him, bracing to block the incoming impact with a powerful jump. As he sails through the sky, Noor realizes that Rin's magic was far more damaging than any of his own attacks. He reflects that even though he's recovered slightly, His bones are still cracked from the force. He sees the enemy's attack coming straight for him. He effortlessly parries the magical blasts. Just as he thought, his mysterious sword proves its worth. He notes its incredible magic resistance, the same property that deflected the dragon's light. Nor easily parries another wave of attacks. He feels none of the weight from the magic he deflects, making the parry feel effortless. He's amazed that the sword feels lighter than his old wooden training sword. What once took immense effort is now simple, and he steels himself for the next volley. He continues to deflect the barrage of magic. The familiar feelings of combat are returning to him, and he's quickly getting used to the weight of his new sword. With incredible speed, Nor lands. He uses his momentum to charge forward into the enemy ranks. However, he clarifies that the projectiles are not his true targets. He needs to buy a little more time for Rin and the others to get to safety. He musters all his strength, gathering it into one point. His focus shifts to the enemy's equipment. He prepares to parry. In a flash, Nor leaps into the fray, his massive sword swinging. With a single powerful motion, he parries the very swords wielded by the soldiers, sending them flying from their hands. Again and again he strikes, disarming soldier after soldier. He wonders if their swords are just that light, or if his own blade is like steel compared to feathers. He continues his assault, parrying hundreds of swords into the air. He estimates he's disarmed 500 and believes he can keep going. After disarming perhaps 1,000 more, he feels he's bought a good amount of time. Nor knows he can keep this up as long as his stamina holds. The soldiers are thrown into confusion by the sudden action. They wonder what just happened, guessing it might have been the shockwave from a light spear attack. One soldier recalls seeing something incredibly fast in the blink of an eye. Another looks up and asks what happened to their swords. Panic erupts as soldiers are struck down. A desperate cry goes out for everyone to look above. Their own swords, which Nor had sent flying, now rain down upon them. Cries of pain and shock fill the air as the blades find their marks. From his vantage point, King Derrida III notices the commotion and asks what happened. His commander is unsure, suggesting an enemy attack, but Derrida dismisses it as impossible due to their detection magic. A captain frantically orders his men to calm down and not mess up the formation. He commands them to use their shields to block the falling swords. His troops are in disarray. A soldier cries out in despair that their shields are gone too. The captain is left speechless with rage. Nor continues his relentless assault, parrying away their last line of defense. Reports reach the command that the hero's shield has disappeared from a distance. The captain, hearing that the rear troop's shield has vanished, orders his men to act now. Derrida grows increasingly frustrated with his seemingly useless soldiers. Suddenly, a figure appears before him. Derrida is startled as Nor appears before him. Having closed an impossible distance in the blink of an eye, Nor recognizes him as the enemy commander who was near Ines. Derrida is stunned, wondering how he accomplished such a feat, but quickly realizes that isn't his most pressing concern. A chilling realization dawns on Derrida. There's only one reason Nor would come all this way. He's here to take the Emperor's head. Nor